Hi, I'm Peter Jones, Chartered Surveyor, author and property investor.
A question I'm sometimes asked is, if I go to auction to buy a property, how do I bid? Well, the very first starting point before you do anything is to sort out your finance, to sort out your survey, to sort out the legal side. That's a given. But you need to decide what the maximum amount is that you're prepared to bid. You need to do your research. You need to research values. You need to know what the property is worth. You need to take into account its condition. You need to take into account what you're going to do with the property when you've bought it. All of that is going to take work. A great resource we can all use, if it's a residential property, is going to be Rightmove sold prices, but you may need to take professional advice from a valuer or from estate agents, for example. But you need to know what the maximum price is that you can afford to pay, because there's going to be a price beyond which it makes no sense at all to buy that property. Now, how are you actually going to bid in practice? Well, of course, you can go to the auction itself and you will have to register. There'll be a registration desk as you go in. The auctioneer will want to know who you are, they'll want your details. They'll want to know, crucially, that if you're the successful bidder, that you can actually pay the deposit. You'll be required to pay a deposit. That could be 10% of the purchase price. They'll want to know how you're going to pay that. In the old days, they'd want you to produce a banker's draft. Now, in this day and age, they may be a little bit more flexible about it, but you need to check with the auctioneer before you go how they expect you to how they expect you to make payment, because you need to have that money if you're successful. There's no point bidding if you can't then go and pay your 10%. You won't get the property. So that's something which you need to do. Now, at the auction itself, sometimes it's a good old-fashioned put your hands up if you're bidding. A lot of people get worried about, if they're scratching their nose and stuff, they might end up buying something they don't want. Auctioneers are used to that kind of thing. It's not really going to happen. But you might want to put your hand up, but quite often nowadays they'll give you something like a paddle, which has got a number on it, and you hold your paddle up when you're bidding. But of course, going to the room is only one way of doing it. In this day and age, you could have telephone bidding. So telephone bidding, you would tell the auctioneer that you want to bid by telephone. Literally, when your lot comes up, the auctioneer's clerk or assistant will call you and they will take your bids over the phone. Now, if you're actually at an auction watching, this is somewhat frustrating because the bidding's going on around the room and the clerk's going back and the auctioneer's waiting and waiting for the clerk to get their client to come up with a figure, and it invariably seems to be the case that the person on the phone thinks they've got all day and they go, oh, well, I'm not sure, I'll think, let me think, how much can I bid? And everyone's going, come on, get on with it. But you could telephone bid, so you could do that. Because we're now into the 21st century, a lot of auctioneers show their auctions live on stream. So if you can get on live on the internet, you could bid on the internet, which is okay. It's okay if the technology works, by the way, but if your Wi-Fi cuts out at the wrong moment and you don't get the property, that could be frustrating. So you could do that. Or you could have what they call a proxy bid, which is where you tell the auctioneer the maximum amount that you're prepared to bid, and they will bid for you. So you'll sometimes see when you're at an auction, the auctioneer will say something like, I've got proxy bids on this property, and they may be sort of taking bids, and you're thinking, well, actually, no, there's actually bidding. That's because they're kind of like bidding in their head for a potential buyer. When they get to the maximum amount that the buyer is prepared to pay, of course, then if they haven't bought the property at that stage, then they have to drop out. So you could be bidding against somebody who is being represented by the auctioneer. So that can all happen as well. What's the best way? In my opinion, I would go to the room, I would bid myself, I would get to see what's happening. I think it's a great way of educating yourself in property, to see what the market's like, to see what's being bid on, to see what's not selling. And there's one crucial thing, which I think I'll cover in a future video, which is one reason why I think it's worth going to the room and bidding. I hope you found that helpful. By the way, if you did, then please remember to subscribe, follow, or like. There's usually a button down here, depending upon which platform you're on at the moment, whether you're watching me on YouTube or Facebook or on my blog or whatever you happen to be watching me on. Do make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe, and then we can keep in touch and I can send you even more great property investing material.
Well, I hope you found that informative and inspirational. And if you want help in property, please do come over to my website, www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk. Loads of great resources there, including my blog. There's loads of free videos, loads of great articles. There's free reports to download, including Learning with Peter, where you'll be able to access resources like my video courses, like my ebooks, including my home study course, the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, which I've literally sold thousands of copies of, which takes you through how I started in property, literally with none of my own money, but how I was able to build a portfolio of £2 million worth of property in just 4 years. I'll show you everything that I did right so that you can do the same, and I'll show you everything that I did wrong. I'll tell you about all of my mistakes so that you can avoid them, so that you can progress in property far more quickly than me. Until next time, here's to successful property investing.